All right, I'm going to take my curved tip scissors, my large curved tip scissors. Most of this is because my hands are just so slick, and so is the plastic. I can't get a grip, and I thought I would try snipping this away with the scissors, which is working really, really well. Yay! I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. And it'll take one or two more castings before I figure out exactly how I need to rest the sections of the mold together to prevent leakage. Well, here are some of the little handy dandy tools and whatnot that I'm going to use to help clean this skull up. You see we have some hobby files here. These are curve end hobby files. These are straight hobby files of different you know, round and triangular corner and flat and whatnot. I was able to snip this side open using the curved tip scissor. This side being thicker, I'm going to go with a small wire nippers. And I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to nip this thing and try and open this up so I can get the files and knife in there and whatnot, maybe even the scissor, and just kind of nibble this away. Here we go. There we go. That's a good one. Good. I mean, you can use a Dremel, but for those of you who don't have a motor tool, there are ways to do things. Right now I'm just cutting a bunch of slots with the wire snips that could be joined together with the use of the knife. Like so. And you can pop these pieces out. Alright? For the seams, I've gone down about as far as I can go with the hobby knife as far as working the seams is concerned. And I'm going to look for a curved file that I think can get in there and do the job. And I've got this one here. It's flat on one side and sort of half curved on the other. And this will get in and allow me to work it by hand. Now, sure, a Dremel tool is quicker, but this would be probably more accurate depending on the bit you use. If you use a stone grinder, yeah, you can get pretty accurate with a stone grinder on these resin parts. But this is how you go around. You take your time. It's called cleanup. And in the world of molding and casting, cleanup is understood. It's necessary. And it's done all the time. It doesn't mean your casting has failed. It simply means, all right, we got to clean it up. Okay. Now, I will show the motor tool being used here as well. Now, across the top here, the file is going to work much better than the hobby knife. This is a thin seam, and this should take it right down, nice and clean. I'm going to go with a straight, flat hobby file at this point, at the top of the head. Now you can see what happens to the file is how clogged it gets from the shavings of the resin, and it really does clog the file. For this purpose, or rather I should say for cleaning, there is a tool which is called a file cleaner. It's just simply a wooden handle with wires embedded, and you drag this across the file in a couple of directions. This is an old one, obviously. They're a lot nicer when they're brand new. But you drag this across the file in different directions, and it cleans the file up. Flat file, curved file, doesn't matter. See that? You've got the resin in file right here. All right. This will clean it out. And it's good to keep your tools in working condition like this. This is also a similar tool I use for scraping up mannequins and head forms in my taxidermy work. Well, let's get back to this. I put my thumb against the opposite side that I'm filing, just to give it some, or my fingers, just to give it some support. Now this could use the flat end of the flat side of the curved end file, like so. And then we can go in with the curved side, right into the eye socket. I don't know how well all this is picking up on camera because I have to be able to look at it. I hope you're able to see some of what I'm doing. Here, I'll put my thumb inside here, and I'll take this seam down a bit. Now these thin weak spots here, okay, these thin weak spots, these can be handled one of two ways, okay? Easiest thing to do is to actually break through with your fingernail. Just break it open. Then you take some of the Tech Bond product, a Tech Bond CA glue, and we fill that in. And the way I like to do this, and I've shown this before I'm sure, is I take a little craft stick, put a little bit of glue on the tip of the craft stick, one end of the craft stick. I take a modeling tool, I pick up some of the CA glue on the tip of the craft stick, from the craft stick to the tip of my modeling tool, and I will fill, where is it? Oh, here it is, the little hole. I'll simply fill this in because this is thick. Right, and I'll fill that right across the surface, just like so. And then I'll go on the inside of the opening and fill it as well. This will strengthen these weak areas. Now, once the opening is completely covered with a thick viscosity Tech Bond glue, I'll go over, just give a light gentle wipe to the edges of it with my finger, just to kind of blend it to the plastic. Let that sit a minute or two, or a few seconds even. Then I'll take the Tech Bond thickener, which is a silica powder, and it works like the baking soda. Just take it and sprinkle it on both the outside and the inside where the glue was applied. Let it sit a minute or a few seconds. This will help it. It's a silicone silicate, I believe is what it is. And just let it sit for a few seconds. Blow off the excess. Then, because this is more expensive than baking soda, I will collect it and get it back into the container. Okay, I'll just simply take it to the edge of my little workboard, get that piece of plastic out of there, and get it back into the bottle as much as I possibly can. Now, if you leave this a few minutes, you leave this in place a few minutes, this will harden the glue. And we can use a little more glue here, sort of push through a bit. Just a little more glue, like so. A little bit more of the silica. Right in place. Give it a light tap with my finger. Tap off the excess. And we'll let this sit for a few minutes. And this will, well, this already, it has filled in where we poke through the weak spot, and it will strengthen that spot, and it will make that spot as strong as the rest of the resin. Okay? And when it does finally set and cure, you can go ahead and file it and grind it and treat it the way you would the resin itself. Now this is noisy, so bear with me. Get in right along the seams. And you bring it up even. I'm just using the tip of this cone grinder here, the stone cone-shaped grinder. I'm just using the tip. I have a smaller grinding stone as well. I'm going to show how you can use even the larger size and do it well. Now here we're coming onto the thicker side, where the resin is a bit thicker on the seam. And still, you can take down the plastic to where it should be. Let's see if we can get in here with the clipper again and do a little more snipping. Uh-huh. You just want to be careful to go along the seam and not go up onto the bone part, onto the reproduction of the bone itself. Let's say I've taken a cast that came out with some problems, and I'm showing how to address those problems as far as the adjustment and all is concerned of cutting and trimming. The next casting, I'm going to try a couple of different things when we do the cast to make the cast. All right, and we go around like so. Here we are. Now we can turn the Dremel back on. Come into the inside of the socket of the zygomatic. And if you're not sure about where the bone is and where your seam is and where your bone should be, you can refer to the natural skull. You can use the natural skull as your guide until you're comfortable working with the resin part. Okay? Now this can use some more clipping here. Go in, like so. Making a lot of little parallel cuts, little cuts parallel to one another. Make this just easier to remove. I'm going to look at the top, see where I should be and where I shouldn't be. Let's see here. And now we can just kind of bend those a little bit and just snap them free. Do this carefully, do this slowly so you don't break the main body of the skull. You don't want to do that. You don't want to ruin the integrity of the skull casting. And if you can at all avoid it, okay, just needs to come up like so here, cut there like so. All these little cuttings and toss them into a garbage pail. We can turn on the Dremel. Bring the subject back in camera. And just go along like so. And continue to work it. Okay, we can take, this is another part that can be cut back to the body of the skull, and we can bend these and take them away. Like so. Would also be good advice to wear a smock or an apron when you're working with the resin, especially grinding it. I wear black, and I got to tell you, there we go, that piece is gone. I wear black, and I can say without equivocation that I look like I've been going through a snowstorm right now. So, you know. Take care of your clothes, and they'll take care of you. Sure, now we can go along and can even this up. Okay. Pretty good, I must say. Pretty good. All right. What we have right now is a very good replica of the skull. Okay. Pull the other one that I made from the first mold, bring it over here. And I'm going to take the lower jaw and on camera, I'm going to fit the lower jaw from the original mold, the original skull molded, to this next one that's been done, to this last one that's been done. And here it is. Now, recalling the purpose of this whole exercise was to produce a recreation of the African wildcat skull, the male African wildcat skull. For what? For sculpting purposes. Well, we've accomplished that. And it only cost, I don't want to even say how much it cost between the silicone rubber and whatnot. That's my secret to take to my grave. But in the meantime, we have two methods of producing skulls, both successful in their own right. To the extent that the first one that was made in the very first mold was a good way to produce a mold for a primate. I tried it on a carnivore and the results were destructive to the original skull and a little disappointing as far as the getting the piece, the part out of the mold. The second one was kinder to the original skull, bearing in mind that the original skull already was severely damaged. All right. So in that respect, this is a good method to use for a skull that's in really, really good shape. Now, this is still a little flexible here, but it's good for a skull that's in really excellent shape. Like I said, what this casting did pick up, where the bone had cracked and was repaired after coming out of the first mold. But overall, I'd say we have a success. We have a fine casting from the original skull, which is now, pardon my reach, which is now here. This is the original skull. Okay, this is the casting from the mold that all but destroyed the skull completely, to the third one. All right, we have a triumvirate of skulls here now. Okay, so I'm pleased. I set out to show a method of molding and casting a skull. I think I've done that. I've taken you on the journey with me. I've pulled no punches. I've not hidden anything as far as results go, and as far as, you know, how things could go horribly, horribly wrong in mold making and casting and whatnot. And the results are here. Okay, the results are here. This is the mold of the lower jaw from the white skull. Here. And we have the original, which will now be put back into my display cabinet. He needs a little washing. He needs to be cleaned up a little bit just from handling and whatnot. So he's going to get another bath with some Dawn detergent and to remove the separator and whatnot, and just clean them up. And then we have two castings. One from a mold that I may or may not use again. If I do, I may alter it or not. I have not decided. It's not been decided. That's to be seen. And then we have the casting from the mold, which we just made a new mold. And I'll be doing another casting just to try a little more gentler and more secure method of holding the mold parts together before I pour the resin in. I'm going to try some different ideas. But here we have it. Okay, here we have it. If you put them together, like so, you've got a pawn shop. No. But anyway, here are the skulls. I think overall, the second mold is a more of a success for a carnivore skull than the first mold was. The first mold was excellent for primates. You can use it for monkeys, lemurs, chimpanzees, gorilla, human skulls. It's a good method for doing those kind of skulls that have a solid eye socket. Again, as seen here. Okay. Yeah, you got to get out of the way, guys. And the second method of making the mold is good for carnivores. Okay. Animals that have this gap in the eye orbit, in the orbital bones. So that's it. There's not much else to say about it, except I'm pleased with the final results. Like I say, I'll be making one more cast. I know I've said that time and time again. You're probably tired of hearing me say it. But I will make just one more cast. And just for the halibut. But again, whether I do another one or not doesn't matter, because the skull is good enough, more than good enough, in fact, to be used in a sculpture. And that was the whole point of this exercise. Instead of ruining and wrecking my actual skull, which I did anyway, but I was able to put them back together, I now have a plastic skull that, for all intents and purposes, as far as the realm of sculpting is concerned, is pretty darn indestructible. So on that note, I will leave you and say ta-ta for now.